This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 196, recorded on December 18th, 2014. Here at Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home, news, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in Bellevue, Nebraska, and of course, we post the show with world-class show notes each week out at theaverageguy.tv. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, of course, you can always contact me, send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. You can find me on Twitter just at jcollison, and some of you have found me out there as well. And now you can call in those questions. In just a second, we're going to hear from Phil, who called in a question, and it's kind of interesting that I would have Brian on the show, and we'll find out why here in just a second. But call it in 402-478-8450. Again, 402-478-8450, and we'll play that question right here on the program. And now Home Gadget Geeks is a part of the Geeks Network. You can find the links to this show and many other great podcasts out of the Geeks Network. That's just thegeeksnetwork.com. And actually, Dave told me the other day he just got geeksnetwork.com as well. So I don't know if that's working yet, but you can try that if you'd like. Join us in chat, watch or listen live on YouTube, Spreaker, or Mixler, and find all the navigation and all the subscription links, including our Amazon affiliate link as well, out at theaverageguy.tv. All right, well, I mentioned we have a special guest tonight, and Brian is no stranger to the network. He was hanging out with Dave McCabe back in July on Surface Geeks, but I met him for the first time at the MVP Summit in November. And so, Brian, great to have you on the program.
Thanks a lot, Jim.
Let's take a second before we play a call in. So the reason the call is significant is because it asks a question about the Surface. It's a listener from Home Gadget Geeks. He knows I now have a Surface. You're a Surface MVP for Microsoft.
Correct.
Tell me a little bit, real quick. Let's get to know you, find out where you're from, what you do, those kinds of things. How about a little intro?
Okay, so originally from Brooklyn, New York, and now living in the northwest part of New Jersey, actually pretty close to the Pennsylvania border. My professional training is a little at odds with what I do, but I was trained as a child and school psychologist, worked for many years in the public schools working with kids with disabilities, but probably over 30 years ago I had gone to a conference that dealt with technology and special needs students and what we called assistive technology, and you can imagine what it was like back then over 30 years ago. It was basically we had the Apple IIe and we had ribbon cables and some really clunky stuff, but it was one of those things I was smitten from the moment I saw it, and I sort of knew in my heart and that that if I was going to work with kids with special needs with disabilities, that technology would be that tool that would level the playing field for them. And so at that point I just started to go to every possible conference, lecture I can go to, because there really were no graduate programs, and so I basically created my own professional learning community back then, and just sort of became an expert in the field by attending, doing, and going. And so I had worked in the schools for many years, and when kids with disabilities would enter, they usually would call on me to figure out what the best system, the best hardware, software was to help them with their reading, writing, math, and also back then it was a lot about access. So that's how I got into it, and I guess about 15 years ago I decided to leave the schools and started doing workshops, trainings, consulting, and then I was offered a full-time position as a faculty member, so I'm now an associate professor of education at a College of St. Elizabeth in Convent Station, New Jersey, and I teach graduate courses in special ed and assistive technology, and during the day I do a lot of consulting to school districts doing evaluations, training, and implementation of various technologies to help students.
What do you think? So in your time doing this, has there been a technology that's come along that has just been that you think, oh man, this has been the biggest breakthrough in what we're doing? Has there been that one thing that you're just so glad came along, or that you just really lean on in that time?
Well, I mean, I think what really revitalized the whole field was this device called the iPad. I think that that was a real game changer because of the price, because of the functionality, and just the way I've never seen a technology being adopted so quickly in schools, which tend to be very conservative. They sort of jumped on the bandwagon, but for certain groups of kids, especially kids with with autism or on the on the spectrum, having the iPad with apps that give them speech is just absolutely amazing, because we're looking at devices that were $7,000 to $10,000 that now you could put together a whole solution for about 700 on it, with an iPad. So it was pretty amazing, and it actually it was really a disruptive technology from a standpoint of the augmented communication field. As a matter of fact, a lot of the the big companies actually went bankrupt or were purchased by other companies because of the iPad. So I think that was really a major a major tool. I mean, just the way it worked, and how you can configure it, and how powerful the apps are on on the device.
So what's the profile of the students that you teach today, in the sense that what do they need to know going in that that maybe 15 years ago didn't even exist, and how are you approaching that?
In terms of the students I'm teaching?
Yeah, the students you're teaching.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really interesting, because of the fact that we have so much technology. So often times we spend a lot of time on the concept of universal design for learning, which kind of gives them an overview of the which what the students needs from a learning standpoint. And then I also give my students lots of experiences creating projects using the iPad, using computer technology as well, but also looking to the web as well for different tools that are available that can help them. But it's just really exciting, just the whole idea that these devices are so portable and so powerful, and that the other part too is a lot of the textbooks now are available in digital format, and with text to speech. It's amazing what we can do. It really it's hard to believe how far we've come in such a short amount of time. I mean, I remember in high school, basically I did some coding, and we basically it was a terminal connected to a big mainframe computer. Just imagine carrying around an iPad or a Surface Pro 3 is just it's just unbelievable. It really is.
I dreamt of days like this when
I know, exactly.
When I was a kid, I was like, oh my gosh, someday we're going to talk on phones, and it's going to be pictures.
I know.
We're going to see each other. I dreamt about a day like that, and now we just take it. We were just talking about that in the pre-show. We just take that so for granted now that you can just make that connection. Is there something special? You mentioned autism and the iPad, and
Right.
I've seen a lot of. I know quite a few parents who have autistic children.
Right.
Is there something special there that really where they can just really connect because it's visual, that they can, because it seems like they can just really work that device pretty well?
Yeah, I think it's the the fact that it is direct touch, so the kinesthetic part. It's very visual, which feeds right into their sort of learning profile, and it's very intuitive. It makes sense, and of course the cost of it is such that parents went out on their own. I mean, for many years, parents would battle insurance companies, to pay, for these devices that were thousands of dollars, and now that if it's $700-800, they're able to put solutions together. So it is pretty amazing. I spend most of my time though working with kids with severe learning disabilities, dyslexia, and so I use a variety of different tools, and I think every year there's new trends, so we kind of did the iPad thing, and now we're into the Chromebook thing, and but I always try to keep in mind that you have to have the right tool for the right job, and so that's where I think things like the Surface Pro 3 make a lot of sense for certain kids that I work with, and so the iPad is not the solution for every student, or the Chromebook, whatever the case may be, whatever the kind of the flavor, yeah, the flavor of
Yeah.
the day. So it's really important to kind of keep that in mind, because districts tend to be, oh, we're going to go out and we're going to buy all iPads and it's going to solve everything for everyone, and that's not the case, and that's why we have so many different tools, is because they do some things, some tools do better at certain things and others do better at different things.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And let's talk a little bit about your journey to the Surface as a Microsoft Surface. How do we get from Chromebooks and iPads to a Surface and now a Microsoft Surface MVP? What's that story?
It's kind of interesting. I guess it was about, it was a little bit, it was 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. I was at ISTE, which is the large national, it's an International Society for Technology and Education conference. And I met with someone from Microsoft. It was at the time when Microsoft gave away 10,000 RTs, and I spent a lot of time with the head of the education division, and we spoke for some time, and I started using it and sort of liked the experience, even though I knew that it was version 1 and it would get better. And so I used RT for a little bit and had some experience with that, and then I decided to sell that, and I bought a Surface Pro 2, which was really, really nice device. I had the dock and everything. And one of the reasons, I always like to keep up with technology, and there was something intriguing about the inking on that really just, I don't know, when you write on any Surface Pro, whether it be Surface Pro 2 or 3, the inking experience is quite unique. And in addition, having the keyboard and also just the compactness of it, for a lot of kids I work with physical disabilities need a keyboard to do certain things. It was a very intriguing, very portable, solution. And so I started using it, started writing about it, and I guess I caught Microsoft's attention, and they invited me to become an MVP. And so I've spent some time actually placing the Microsoft Surface Pro 3 into the hands of students with disabilities, and do some training as well. So it's been exciting, because I love having tools that meet the needs of students. And like I said, it's not, you have to have a variety of different tools in your toolbox, and the Surface Pro 3 definitely is a tremendous solution for certain students that need certain applications. The other part too is that because it's a Surface Pro 3 and it runs Windows 8, I can run, legacy applications, full applications that do the kinds of things that I needed to do for kids who have reading or writing disability. So it's unique in that regard too. I'm not running an app. One of the difficulties with apps is that, and one of the problems I've seen, especially working with some of the kids that I do, is a lot of these kids may have difficulty with sequential memory, and the apps do very finite things, so they're jumping in between several apps, and it's hard for them to keep going in and out. And so, with the Surface Pro 3, I could set them up and put them in an application that does a lot of things, so they're not jumping around from one small app and copying and pasting into another. So, a lot of times it does solve that problem for me.
Have you found the limitations in the Chromebook just that there really are no apps? You really got to do everything online if you're going to do it that way. And so is that, and then the iPad, of course, is app centric. Is that what you're finding limitations are with those?
Yeah, there's, I think from the standpoint of the school, they love the Chromebooks because you have a keyboard, especially for the high stakes testing now. What's one of the requirements is a keyboard, and of course they're inexpensive, and also from just an IT point of view, they're very, very easy to manage, and much easier than iPads. I would say probably the Surface, Surface Pro 3 of Windows 8 is probably as easy to manage as well. There are definitely some more limitations, especially if you want to run legacy kind of Windows software. But a lot of companies are coming out there, and honestly, they're coming out with some innovative solutions on the Chromebook using their apps and extensions. So it's kind of interesting. But it's like what's happening is the camps are dividing. So you get schools that are Windows camps that are running Office 365 and OneNote, and then you have the Google app districts that they're doing everything through Google Drive. So they've divided that way.
You have iPad ones too, right? That are doing all the Apple services and iCloud.
Yes.
And
and that's it's hard once they get locked into that infrastructure, it's hard for them, to see where other tools might play a place, to meet the needs of kids. And I think that's the challenging part. Is like, I go in and I say, well, I think the child needs a Surface Pro 3, but we're a Mac district. It's like, well, we're a Chromebook, and it's hard for them. And I go in, I just recently went into a district and they're moving toward Chromebooks, and they had me evaluate this child with a reading and writing disability. And I came back to them and I said, we tried the Chrome stuff, it just wasn't right for him, and so sometimes it is a challenge, one way or the other. I've actually gone in and you spoke to IT people because they were hesitant about bringing in the iPads because they were a window shop. So it's constant, and tomorrow will probably be something else that's being developed now in the laboratories of HP or Google or who knows.
Let's hope so. I like to see. It's been a while. It's been a while since we've, and I say a while, man, maybe 5 years, but since we've seen these wildfire innovations. You said the iPad kind of changed the rules on a lot of things, and so
yes.
I think we're due for something else along those lines. Everything's gotten, it's kind of versions of, we'll talk about watches and gadgets and things like that, but we haven't seen anything. Yeah, and I think you're right. We sometimes get these ecosystems make a division for us, and so it's too bad that we can't have an agnostic environment where everything can be okay and you use the right tool for the right person. And so in a lot of cases, the Chromebook is great, and for a lot of things, Nathaniel Lindley, one of our listeners here who's been on the podcast regularly, he works in an area where they're all Mac, or they're all Chromebooks, and they're easy to administrate and easy to deploy. And the kids, my sister works for a school, and they're all iPad, and she said, man, iPads change the way she teaches. And just did some different things. Even for the regular students, having that technology in the classroom has been super helpful. Let's talk a little bit about Surface, just real quick. What's your favorite? What you mentioned the inking, right? And I too. Is that your favorite thing about the Surface when you think about it? Is that kind of the game changer for you on it?
I think that's one of the. I just love the. I love the fact that I got this really powerful device that I can basically, takes up no room in my bag. I throw it in there and I can do my work wherever I am. I think that's key. And there are some programs that run on Windows that I just really enjoy using. I use a lot of mind mapping software to do things, and I have a couple of favorites like MindView, and I use it a lot. And it just runs great on the Surface. So it's having that really powerful computer in a small footprint I can throw in my bag. Sometimes I don't even realize I have it in there. It's quite incredible. And when I teach, I love using the wireless connectivity using the Miracast technology with the inking in OneNote. So
cool.
That's
Let's save that. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But because you're a Surface MVP, and because I got one of those too, Phil, I always encourage people to call in. So Phil from the UK called in. He's got a question for us. So let me. Android didn't lock me out. Okay, there we go. Let me play this, and we'll see if you guys can hear it. Here we go.
Oh, hi, Jim. My name's Phil. I'm calling from UK. I'm a fan of your podcasts, and I always enjoy Home Gadget Geeks. I've heard you asking us to call in, so I thought I'd respond. I've got a new Surface Pro 3, which I'm really enjoying. But I'm finding the dialog box or the on-screen keyboard doesn't pop up as often as it used to on my Surface 2 in the past. So when I touch dialog boxes where I expect the keyboard to pop up, it doesn't always come. I'm just wondering if you've come across that yourself, and if you've got any ideas how I might resolve that. Keep up the good work with the podcasts. Really enjoy them. Cheers, Phil.
I like at the end when he says, cheers, Phil, like he's signing the letter. Cheers, Phil. We talked a little bit about that in the pre-show, and I think his issue with that is he's feeling like that dialogue when you're flipping in between keyboard and not using the keyboard, and we're going to talk about Windows 10 in a little bit too, and how I think that's going to change.
Right.
But like that keyboard dialog's not popping up. And so have you seen any difference, like any changes where it's popping up less than it used to?
No, but I think I mean, Microsoft is aware there is an issue, and on the Metro side, it tends to be much more automatic that the keyboard pops up when it's supposed to. When you're on, I'll call it the Windows sort of 7 side, there's some issue with IE, and it just doesn't come up. So you have to, a lot of times I manually have to go down and just, you see the little icon for the keyboard and just tap it, and it pops up. So there is a conflict with some of the firmware. So hopefully, with Windows 10, we'll get around that. But there is an issue. Yes.
Okay. Well, good. Phil, thanks for calling in. And it was just ironic. I got the message last week, and we've been planning for a couple weeks to have you on the show. And tonight, when I'm like, I should probably listen to that message again. And as I was playing, I'm like, oh, great. It's a Surface question. I've got a Surface MVP on, so it just worked out well. We'll take it to Surface Geeks as well. Reminder, if you don't listen to Surface Geeks, you can head over to surfacegeeks.net. Dave McCabe runs that just about every other week or so. I've been trying to join him now that I'm finagling my way. I'm trying, Brian. I'm trying. I'm working my way onto the Surface team. I think there's no secret there.
We need you there. We need you.
There's no secret that I'm finagling my way off the Windows team and on. Well, the cool thing about the Surface team is it's really both hardware and software together, right? We get the best. We get the best of it. Before we talk about your gadgets, let's talk a little bit about Windows 10, because it's one of those things that we can separate out from the Surface when we talk about it, but I think is going to be great on the Surface. I mean, as I started looking at, have you done much work yet? Have you tried it? You have it in VMs? You got it on hardware? Have you done much work?
I haven't yet, but I've been following and watching videos and things. But I think the whole idea of the continuity of when you're using, the keyboard, when you're using the touch interface is going to be unique. And I think the biggest issue that most people had with Windows 8.1, it feels like a very schizoid kind of experience, because you got the Metro and then you have this Windows 7 thing, and some people would get confused as to where they were at. And I think that will all be unified with 10, so it'll feel like you just using one operating system, and it won't make a difference if it's a legacy application or a Metro app. It'll open up in a window. So I think that experience will be a lot different, and especially on the tablet. It should be a much more pleasant experience, because it will know when the keyboard's attached and when you're using it as a tablet.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to carrying the Surface around. So I might be in tablet mode, right? So I've got it this way. So I might be doing some stuff, and as soon as I pop it in, it automatically the keyboard function just goes away, right? I mean, from it popping up anymore. And getting, because it even now it gets a little confused sometimes, and I get the funny thing is I'm using Windows 10 enough that I expect it to, when I'm working on this now, I expect it to work like Windows 10, and I'm like, oh, that's right, I'm not on a Windows 10 OS yet, and so it's been but I am looking forward. If there's one piece of functionality that I'm looking forward on the Surface, is that quick connect the keyboard, and then it shuts off the on-screen keyboard immediately and goes into goes kind of into the full screen.
It'll be interesting to see. I know that Microsoft has planned a meeting at the end, I guess, third week in January. So basically on the consumer side of Windows 10, it should be interesting to see what developments and what they communicate. But I think it's gonna be a really great experience where they unify both sides of the Metro and the legacy applications. It'll be a fantastic experience on the Surface.
Yeah, it's been a great experience. I've run it both physical hardware, so I had a laptop. I've had a laptop here at a Core i7, early generation Core i7. That was my son's non-touch, and so I ran it on that for a while. Ran great. I've run it in a couple different VMs, some local VMs, also running it in an Azure VM, which is kind of interesting because I can get to that Windows 10 instance from anywhere. And I can even open it on the Surface and make it look like it's running Windows 10 on that, which is kind of cool.
That's cool.
Screen. Yeah. You just kind of get a glimpse. Now it doesn't act exactly the same way, but although I should monkey around with that more, just to see what it does as it's full screen and kind of taking over kind of the Surface at that point. And one of the things I've really liked about it is the notification center that's in there. That really is a clean Windows has been missing notifications. I mean, the notifications have just been awful. You just don't really know. They've had this action center, and it was just it was horribly laid out. And this just really goes to the plain dialog box. Here's the notifications. Here's what's going on your PC. Clear them all. It works a lot like a phone, and so I'm kind of glad. And then we've seen some leaked builds of it where even the control panel is moving over to more of a Metro-style simplification of things. And so I'm excited to see that come, because everybody says, you say Windows 8 to anybody, and they're like,
yeah.
And
I'm also really excited with the possibilities with Cortana on Windows 10 also. I think speech, and I think that's you sort of asked where the direction of technology is going. It's definitely going towards some speech recognition and computers understanding natural speech and things of that sort. So I think there were some videos and I guess leaked videos about Cortana on the desktop, which was really interesting to watch.
Yeah, and I haven't found, Windows or Google Now on the desktop with the mic where you push it and you talk into it.
Right.
I haven't found that particularly helpful in what I'm doing. It works okay. On my Android phone, it's fairly worthless. I mean, it does some cool. It's got some good gadgety things.
Right.
I was talking with Vince Cerf about this. We had him here at Gallup. He's a senior scientist for Gallup, and I still think we're a ways away. Even though the speech is working, we've got some things to work out. But I think our devices, if we're gonna talk to them, they have to talk back to us with a personality, not
robotic thing, right?
Yeah, I think before we trust them, they'll need to have some, like a Jarvis, right, from Iron Man. That's where they know us, they talk to us. It's kind of human-to-human interaction. Otherwise, it feels like Riker on Star Trek Next Generation, where he's looking up at the ceiling and saying, "Computer," kind of thing. And you just go, God, that is horrible. Even in that generation, they didn't really have an idea. The computers, they had all this power, but they didn't see that the computer could have a personality or kind of act like that.
And that's the thing too, is always like, is the contextualization of it, what's the context? And I think that's the thing that, where the computers need to get more smarts in terms of, when you ask it a question, it understands, has some background information, who you are, what the context of the question is, and I think it's the contextualization of it that's really key, not so much just, just adhering to a command. I think that's the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, so Loftus said in chat, he says, Jim, next time you see Vince Cerf, give him a hug for me. I mean, here's the guy who invented the internet, right? Next time he's in town, next year, I see him about once a year. Hey, Vin, I'm gonna, from humanity, I'm just gonna give you a hug. Thanks for the internet.
That's good.
Thank you for the internet. That would be awesome. Let's talk. Anything else on Windows 10 as far as when we talk about that? I mean, you mentioned the consumer preview coming, I think, the 21st of January or something like that.
Yes.
And we're pretty excited about that piece coming. I think there's going to be some new functionality coming with it. I'm going to be gearing up my VMs to kind of get ready for that, so that we can do some testing on. Anything else along those lines that you're looking forward to?
No, it's pretty much. I think that unification of both sides of the operating system, I think, is really critical for people to have more confidence, and I think they'll have just a much better user experience using Windows 10.
Yeah, I was speaking at a school on Wednesday, so if you follow me on Twitter or Facebook, you saw some pictures.
Yes.
I was out doing some podcasting at a high school, which I just love. It was so
great.
good. It was so good, and some audio. That's going to be heavily produced stuff, so it'll be weeks, maybe even a month or two before I put that stuff out. But so I was. That class got over, and the teacher said, "Hey, would you stay around for the? We have sophomores coming in, and would you stay around and just introduce yourself and talk to them?" She'd have let me talk the whole class if I would have taken it. She was super happy that I was just there. She's very techie, but.
Right.
So I'm talking about Windows 8, and I was going to try and show them the Windows 10 Tech Preview. They their school blocks remote desktop connection. So I got stuck there. I couldn't do it. Didn't have a device that I could show it to them immediately on. But so I said, well, Windows 10 is coming, and one of the girls goes, "Oh, I just bought a laptop that's Windows 8. You could just see fear in her eyes, like, that's not going to... And I'm like, no, you're probably...
No, you'll be fine.
You're going to be okay. You're going to get it. It's probably going to be okay.
Yes.
But it was just fun to interact with those kids. And then I was showing them the Surface. I plugged it in. I'd use an adapter. I bought a Cable Matters adapter that's got VGA, HDMI, as well as DVI on it. Plugs into the Surface as well. A nice little adapter for it. So I'm plugged in, and she raises her hand. She goes, why is there Internet Explorer still on there?
Oh, wow.
I thought that was an interesting. This is a sophomore, right?
Right.
She goes, that's a terrible browser, right? And it's had its problems, right? I mean, obviously it's living. So we have these kids who are browser savvy.
Yes, and they're using a Chrome browser most of the time, I would imagine.
I think in most cases, right?
Yes,
all the kids are using Safari or
Chrome.
Chrome. Yeah. Firefox has really kind of started to tail off.
Yes.
From a browser that folks are using, but it was interesting, and I'm like, well, it comes with the OS, and I just haven't taken it off. And there are times when I want to use it, actually at work, there's things that, because we're a Microsoft environment, there's things that work better on IE as opposed to the browser, and so I just left that on. But
it's interesting perspective, yeah.
Do you get some feedback? How often are you in the schools where now you're teaching it, but your students are college students? How often are you getting into the schools where you're seeing the kids at the high school or junior high or elementary level?
I do a lot. I do a lot of consulting in the morning because I teach graduate courses late in the afternoon. So I'm in schools all the time, working with students and teachers. It's a lot. It's a lot of fun, and it keeps me grounded in that I'm not sort of speaking from a Ivy League chair there. I'm actually working with kids, have real experience with teachers, and finding out what works and what doesn't work, and getting feedback from students, which is really essential. So that's the exciting part. Some of the work I do is very like I go in, I do an evaluation, and then I'm done. I don't really see what happens. Other times I do have regular consultations based on my recommendations, so I get to see how things are going, which is really exciting. But I spend a lot of time working with the teachers as well to make sure they really know what they need to know to make it work. It's rarely just handing off a Surface Pro 3 to a teacher and say, you're on your own, good luck. It just doesn't work. It's got to be systematic, and the school districts that do it right have me come in and do the training and do the follow-up, or else everything falls apart. It just doesn't get used. Unfortunately, our field, and probably other fields too, the abandonment rate could be anywhere from 75 to 80%, even when districts go out and buy a piece of equipment. It gets abandoned because of lack of training and support. So it's, hopefully, again, in those districts that are doing it right, they have people like me who come in and work with the teachers and do the training and the support and make sure it works. And also, sometimes we have to change in mid-course too, because something that I thought would work may not, and it's nature of the beast.
Yeah. Do you get good solid feedback from the kids, and do they come opinionated with their tech bias?
Yeah, this is you'll appreciate this. I was working with a sixth grader about a month ago, and I think it was right before the summit. And I walked in, and the district told me they're using iPad, so I brought my iPad, and I'm working with the student, and she's physically disabled. She's in a wheelchair, and I'm about to leave, and she goes to me, how about if I use the Surface Pro 3? And I go, what? She goes, yeah, she goes, I was in the Microsoft store in the mall, and I tried it, and I really liked it. And I was trying to explain to her that I thought the iPad would work, but she was just so she was such an advocate for herself that I felt like I had to go back. So I did. The next week I brought my Surface Pro 3. We tried it with her, and she loved it. And so actually yesterday I was back in the school. The school purchased it, and I was doing some training. So some of the kids really advocate for themselves, and they sort of know what they like. So I sort of have to go with the student's perspective, because if they're motivated by a piece of equipment and it meets their needs, I want to give them something that they can grow into, but something that they really love using. And in this particular case, this student really, she just fell in love with the Surface Pro 3. So it was interesting.
I kind of find that with people too, that when they start asking me about tech questions, I almost now always say, well, what have you been using that you really like to get
Hmm.
kind of a feel? Because getting them to go cross-platform when they're not willing to do it, it's just impossible, right?
Yeah.
That's one of those things where when the school district imposes, we're going to be an all Mac school, and the teacher's like, well, wait a minute. In this classroom the other day.
Hmm.
I was interviewing one of these gals, and
Right.
I was asking her how she does her video editing, and she like apologetically said, well, I do it with Sony Vegas on Windows, and I'm in a classroom full of 27-inch Mac. They got some
Right.
nice equipment
Yes,
there,
I know.
obviously feeling beat down that she was a Windows user, in this world of Mac.
Hmm.
But I said, hey, if that is working for you, right? Again, we get back to this message: the best technology is the technology that works,
And the
for you.
one that you use, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it is. But again, it's always and it's a lesson that I teach my students too, is that we have to be careful not to impose our own values when we're doing this, and let I'll say the consumer, the student, guide us as we're trying to figure out what the best solution is. And it's sometimes our own pride gets in the way, or we think we know better, but it's really, in the end, it's really that match between the technology and and the student's learning profile that makes a real difference. And again, if they have a preference, that's going to be motivating them enough for them to really use it. And that's in the long run, that's the most important thing. Will they use it? And if they do, that's the most important thing to me.
Yeah, it's ironic. So at work, we put in a whole bunch of new equipment, audio, video stuff, new
Right.
conference rooms, and the contractor they went with was very Mac heavy, and so we have
Right.
iPads that slide into these pockets in the wall where you can do controls, you can pull them
Right.
out and take them with you and do all this cool stuff. And so far, every time I go into one of those rooms, the iPad is sitting on the wall and it says need an update, okay, or cancel. And I'm
No
like,
one's using them, huh?
not at all. And need an update. It's just funny how often. I mean, I go into the same room all the time, and it seems like that iPad wants an update like every week. And I'm like, what world is it that we have Apple products updating that frequently now? Or at least to me, it's seeming to be that
It is.
often.
It's been frequent. Yeah, it has been
Yeah,
frequent. There's been a
yeah, yeah.
couple of upgrades that days of each other, because of problems and stuff like that. So that is that is an issue. Yeah. So it's I mean, it's just, but I mean, as you know, it's just been such. I mean, these times are so exciting to be in technology. I mean, it's just like you. I mean, it's just impossible sometimes for me to keep up, and I
Oh,
try to do my best. But it's like it's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. It's
the Amazon Fire Stick just came out, right? And it's not
yes.
that much different than the Fire TV. And then we have Chromecast, and then we have Apple TV, and then there's a whole bunch of other off-market. Dave
Right.
was talking about one, and I should know it. Somebody in the chat room will get it. It was a media center kind of thing. So there's all these different things going on. And the other day, I've had a Chromecast that I bought. So I bought one for the family. My wife
Hmm.
actually uses it. The other night, I was so proud of her. We're watching TV. She's like, "Oh, I want to show you this video." And she grabs her phone, brings it up, hits Chromecast. TV comes on. She hits start. Boom. I mean, like,
Yeah.
she had it, man. It was awesome. The video played for us, and then just last night or 2 nights ago, we were talking about this video. There's this skiing video where this guy skis down the crack of this mountain that's super steep and super scary. And I was like, hey, look, I'm going to play it. And so I came back here and I brought up Chrome and
Right.
I hit, boom to the TV and out it went. But I've had the second Chromecast sitting on my desk that I bought, like it's a refurb. I bought it for like $15 on
Right. Right.
Boot or something like that. I haven't used it.
Yeah.
In fact, I had to pull it over here to plug it in the other day. I just haven't gotten around to it. From a media standpoint, I assume you got some Chromecast going on, but how do you consume your media there? What are you using? We talk about watching TV and those kinds of things.
I actually, when the Chromecast came out, I was one of the I purchased it immediately. So downstairs we have an older HDMI. It's a Sony, like, I don't know, Brevi or something. We bought it like 6-7 years ago. It's a big beast of a TV, and so I have my Chromecast down there. And upstairs we just updated. I just bought a Vizio smart TV, and that has a lot of the apps built in. I actually have a Miracast receiver attached to the HDMI port. It's a Action Tech ScreenBeam Mini 2. It's looks like the size of a Chromecast that's plugged in, so I could do mirror casting from there because all the smart apps are built in. I got Netflix and Hulu, but most of the time I'm using Netflix or HBO or Showtime, which is part of my I guess my cable package. But for streaming, Chromecast is definitely downstairs has worked. It's worked really well. It's a great little device.
And do you find, how are you pushing when you're pushing content to the Chromecast or selecting it? What kind of device are you using to connect to it?
Usually my iPhone 6, or I have an iPad. I got you name the device. Jim.
You've got one.
Well, like I said, I like to keep current. So I have 2 iPad Airs. I have an iPad Mini. I have a Dell Venue Pro 8. I have a Nexus 7 tablet. So I just try to keep. The hardest part is keeping them all charged. Believe it or not.
Yeah, I know it is. You're like, oh, you go to grab it, and it's been sitting.
I know.
Do you ever have that technology guilt sometimes when you're like, here sits on my desk $1,000 worth of tablets, right, for the most part, when you think about all those.
Yes.
And I maybe use them one time a week or a month or what have you. You need to have them because there's times when you got to test stuff or you want to try stuff out. If you have a little tech guilt, I do. I mean, I'm thinking, I've got this Lumia 520 I never even use anymore. It just sits on my desk.
Yeah, I mean, there's some like. And then I go through, probably like you, I go through phases, right? There was a phase I was using my iPad Mini all the time because of its size and stuff. And then I actually wound up buying 2 iPhone 6s, and there was a special. If I did that, I got $200 off on a iPad Air with LTE. So I've been using that, which is, having LTE is just really fantastic in the device. And I think hopefully that's where the next Surface Pro is going, because it's just a game changer for me. I go into schools where either they won't let me get on their Wi-Fi, I can't get on their Wi-Fi, and just having that functionality is really key. But yeah,
Brian, let me ask you. You don't think having a separate Wi-Fi device is for you, especially having so many devices and many of them not having LTE? If you had a Verizon hub, and I'm not using the right term.
I have one of the MiFis too, Jim. Don't worry about that. Yeah. I actually bought the MiFi last year before I had the LTE, because I had an iPhone 4S for the longest time, which was just basically a 4G, I guess a 3G. So it didn't have LTE, so I got the MiFi. So I do use that on occasion as well. But now I can use my my iPhone 6 as my hotspot too, because it's pulling the LTE. So I don't use the MiFi as much as it's like it's. It's, what can I tell? But the guilt is, I don't feel like guilty because it's my profession and it's also my business, so I'm making an investment in, carrying around with me, current technology that, I use, in my practice. So, that's the way I look at it. So it's not like if it was more for just personal consumption, I probably would feel that guilt, but there are times when I just need a piece of equipment and I have to have it, and it's in my arsenal. Yeah.
Well, you need to have it available for what
exactly.
you do. Yeah. Kevin wants to know. Kevin Schoonover wants to know if you have an HP touchpad anywhere hanging. Do you remember those from about 3 or 4 years ago?
No, I don't have any of those.
Nobody does.
Is he looking for one?
You were listing off all your stuff. And that's actually, we talked about that quite a bit. That was something I kind of, because I was a Palm Pre guy, and that touchpad was kind of the, HP picked that up and then put the Palm OS on it, and they sold them for a while, and then they sold them for $99, and they just flew out the,
yeah, I remember that.
Never to be seen again. So that's one of those things that gets brought up in our community just because we'd had a little.
Yeah, I was a Palm user too for many years, and I actually used. There was a company that no longer it was called Alpha Smart, and they had developed this Alpha Smart Neo that had the Palm operating system with a small LCD display, and when laptops were like $2,000, these were like $400, and so it was using them, but could never really get the Palm operating system to work in a classroom environment. It was built for the for the one person, and that was the downfall. They invested a lot in it, and they just could never. It was just a kludge to synchronize and do what they had to in a classroom scenario. Yeah.
I remember I had a Palm 5, and I had a little wireless or a little keyboard, little portable keyboard with
Yeah,
that thing.
yeah,
And you fold it
yeah. I
out
had
on
one.
a
Yeah,
plane. I'd take
yeah.
notes, and when I got back, I'd sync that thing to the PC. Man,
Yep.
those were the days. That's
I know.
it's going
I
back a
know.
ways. It's going back a ways. But
That's true. That's
man,
true.
you'd have all those problems with it.
But
Let's talk a little bit about
that's
watches, a little
gadgets.
bit,
All
because
right.
you've got a Pebble, and you got the Fitbit Zip, which is not.
Yeah.
Hold on. Hold on. Do that again. I'll put the. I didn't.
Let me see if I
show
can.
that. Yeah.
I'll do one of my little fans here. Let's see if it's. Let's see. Come on. Okay. So this is the Pebble. This was actually I invested in the Kickstarter project when it was a Kickstarter, and I'm not a big. I'm not into jewelry and I'm not into really watches, but I really love this because it's so lightweight. It uses e-ink technology, so it could stay charged for about a week. It's got apps if you want to, if you're into running and activity. I kind of use it, for basic kind of things. But what I really love it for is the fact that all my tweets, text messages, notifications get displayed on the Pebble, which is nice. So that when I'm in a meeting and even if the phone rings, I can see who's the number. I can see who's calling, which is nice. And I do see my tweets and notifications, Facebook, Twitter, those kinds of things, LinkedIn. So it's really nice. And I'm not really looking for anything. I don't really need this to, communicate back to my phone. But it does some nice things. I can change the. Let's see if we can change it. Now I have my Rolex.
Any future with those? Have they? I mean, they rolled out with a bunch of fanfare. One of my high school students has one of those. He's actually hacked it and done some cool stuff with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't heard much beyond that. What's the ecosystem like, and are they continuing?
I mean,
to produce it?
they continue to. Yeah, I mean, they came out with a higher end one. That's kind of looks more like a higher end watch. They continue to roll out apps. And they've lowered. I mean, this one, I think right now you get it like even at Best Buy like $79 or something like that. It's also waterproof, which is nice. It does the things I need it to do. But it's I'm sure it's not gonna be what the Apple watch is going to be, like the Dick Tracy watch, shall we say?
Well, we'll see if they ever get one out. I mean, it's a little surprising to me. It's taken them this long to get one to market. They're going to miss the Christmas season. It's gone, and
I know.
It's just not like Apple to have missed the Christmas season on this one.
Yeah, it must be. There's a lot to it, I guess.
Yeah. One of my Apple apologist friends.
Yes.
Said, Jim, we're not gonna, and like he's part of the company. He says, Jim, we're not gonna release that
before it's time, right?
until it's just perfect. It has to be just perfect. The longing for these Steve Jobs days. And I was like, well, okay, that's fine. We'll see when it comes. Maybe it'll be a great watch. Did you take a look? So at Summit, we did a lot of talking about the band.
The band.
Take a peek at that one.
I did. I think it's interesting. It's definitely version 1. It looked too big to me. I mean, I don't like when I put this on. This weighs a couple of ounces, and I don't even know it's there sometimes. The band just looked too big, and there was something about even the way it wraps around your wrist. I mean, I know Dave is. Most of the guys are wearing it on the inside. The inside. Over here, just the way it angles, it just looked like too much. Too much for me at this point. I mean, I use a Fitbit for steps and stuff like that. So.
And you're using the Zip, so you're using the.
I'm using I got this small little, the small little guy. Yeah, this little guy here.
Yeah.
Which is nice because it stays charged with a little. Quarter-size battery for about 3-4 months, depending on how much I use it. And it's interesting. My brother had one of the higher-end ones, and he went to this because he got tired of charging the device. It's like, it's like one less thing. It's a lot. When you think about all the things we have to keep charged these days.
Yeah, and the band only gets maybe 30 hours, so You got to
I
figure
know.
out when you're going to throw that thing on the charger. If you want to get the sleep stuff, you're not going to
I
charge
know.
it when you sleep. I mean, it's a real dilemma, right? Because
It is.
it's tracking everything. And of course, if you're a data nerd, you want every bit of data it's got to track on you. So you're like, well, so I've asked some people, when are you going to charge it? Well, I guess when I'm in the bathroom, or I
Right.
guess when I'm sitting at my desk at work,
Right.
when I would pull that
Right.
thing off and throw it on the charger, and then of course I would get up and walk away and forget it.
Yeah, I just want to check. Let's see the battery life. Yeah, so it's like, I mean, now it's at 50%, but I mean, this thing will go for probably about a week, without
Yeah.
a charge, which is nice. I mean, it's too bad they haven't, it's like in the traditional watches where the movement would charge it. I don't understand why they can't do something like that with
Yeah, you would think
these.
a device that's measuring your movement.
Yes.
That's a great idea.
Yes, I know. So, but
You should patent that.
yeah, I'm sure. But yeah, so I mean, I use that. I use my Surface Pro 3. And I've been a big fan of the Livescribe pen. This is the Sky, which is nice because this syncs everything to my Evernote account in the cloud. So basically, it's like scanning my notes, but more importantly, this allows me to record audio. So it basically allows me to bookmark audio when I'm working with students, which is really nice. And when I tap on the paper, it cues up to that point in time when the students were speaking. I do a lot of stuff around reading and comprehension, and so it's just been invaluable to me. And then I can always access all these files, both the audio and my ink, through Evernote, which is really great. This actually has a Wi-Fi radio built in, so once I come home, it just syncs everything.
Wow.
And backs it up for me, which is great. So I keep all my notes pretty much in that journal, and there's different kinds of note paper. They just basically partnered with Moleskine, so you can get Moleskine journals, and write on those as well using this pen. So anyone that's doing anything where audio is important, and I also work with a lot of high school and college students that have difficulty listening and taking notes, and so this has really proven to be invaluable to them. And a lot of kids with learning disabilities, when they go off to college, they used to be provided with note takers. Now a lot of the universities and colleges are giving them the pen to take into class, and so they're doing it independently, which is really exciting. So it's nice. I mean, it's a nice system.
How helpful would that be to be able to record some of those conversations and then come back to them weeks later and listen to them at 2 or 3 times the speed?
Correct.
Right, because you have the context already, and so you can just
Yeah.
sometimes I've been listening to podcasts that way. You can just get through the information. It's funny to take a 45-minute podcast that you're used to, where it takes 2 or 3 trips to work for me to get through that, and if you listen
Right.
to double speed or even triple, it's done by the time
Right.
you get there, and you're like, oh wow, I guess I can consume this
Yeah.
information.
So I mean, I'm just going to cover up over here, but if I were to just like tap on here. Oh, so you can see that that's a reading fluid, and then at the bottom. Yeah, just up here. So then at the bottom of the page are icons that let me control the speed, so I can actually slow it down as I'm listening to it, and you can see and I can also jump around the page too. So basically, the ink is sort of bookmarks for the audio. I mean, so it's great because it lets me do things rather quickly and collect data. So when I'm sitting here writing a report, I can then go back and listen to what the student said, during the session. So anyone that's doing interviewing or audio recordings are important. It's just a great tool, and again, it backs everything up. It archives it in Evernote, which is nice. Which I use a great deal as well.
Have you tried that same functionality with OneNote on Surface, where you just tap the record button and let the Surface do the recording? where it just and then it keeps that audio file in OneNote?
Yeah, I have. It's kind of interesting with the technology so far, a field of some of our policies. A lot of the schools have giving some of the kids a tough time with audio recordings these days, and so it's become an issue. But in OneNote, there's basically a audio recording function, and it works really well. But some of the schools are hesitant to allow students to do the recording in the classroom. Even with the pen too, I've come across schools that will not allow certain students to use it. So that has become an issue, and some schools are revisiting their audio recording policy because of some of the new technologies, whether it be OneNote or Livescribe, or so it's like it's tough for them sometimes to keep up.
Well, it's an old thought, right, of recording and
Yes.
It's come so far. What's the name of that pen again?
Livescribe,
Livescribe.
L-I-V-E scribe.com. If you need more information, it's a great. I mean, again, if you work in a field where interviews are important, or collecting information, it's a really nice tool.
How's the audio quality on that when you think about where we're at with podcasting these days? Is it pretty good?
Yeah, it's the other part too is if you're in like a large lecture hall, they do have higher quality. They call them 3D microphone. Look like a headset, but you plug it into the top, and then the audio quality is very, very good. You get that really crisp quality sound. The microphone built in there it's okay. I wouldn't say it's fantastic. The new one, the Smart Pen Livescribe Smart Pen 3 that just came out, uses the either your iPhone or an iPad as the recording device. So it uses low energy Bluetooth as a recording device. So it means that you have to have your phone on you when you do it. I like this pen better because it has both the microphone and the speaker built into the pen, whereas when you're using it, the new pen, you're actually using the microphone and the speaker on your iDevice to record or listen to it. So,
that's a technology I've lost track of. I was aware of those a couple years, maybe 3-4 years ago, and I kind of lost track of it. It's not the sexy watches or phones or whatever, but it's interesting. You just tapped on that, and then you see the controls at the bottom of the page, and I'm like, wow, that's actually really helpful. I'm wondering if anybody else in the community is using that.
Yeah, and for the other part too, because I work in schools. Like today, I was in a school where students have developmental disabilities or cognitive disabilities, and what I could do with that pen is I can actually put what they call sound stickers on paper, and so when students tap the sticker, it might give them, they can listen to the teacher's direction so that the teacher doesn't have to be there all the time hovering over them. So we're trying to teach them independence, following directions. They have learning centers. So now they can go to the learning center, tap on the sticker, and listen to what, the directions, as opposed to the teacher always having to, get up and tell them what to do. So it's kind of interesting what you can do with some of these technologies. Both personally, I mean, I use it. I've been using these systems for years myself, because I'm not the greatest person with paper, but if I know I do it and it's also on Evernote, I can access it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can also push that to the new pen, the Livescribe 3 pen. You can push all your notes to OneNote now as well.
Oh, very cool. Let's one last question, and Brian, thanks for taking an hour. It goes so fast.
No problem.
Start talking about this stuff. I appreciate it. We're already at an hour. Let's look at the future. At the end, we're at the end of 2014. We're headed into 2015. We're already halfway through the decade, which is just scary to me that
It's pretty scary.
We're halfway through this decade already. What are you looking for as you look out ahead? What are some of the tech? What are some of the gadgets you're waiting for, looking forward to? Anything out there? Maybe it's just one thing, but anything out there you're really looking forward to?
I think for some of the kids that I work with, especially that were really physically disabled, we've made some strides in the area of using eye gaze technologies, and I think that going forward we'll even make there'll be even more improvements. So I'm looking forward to that, where it's kind of built into the system, and I know that some of the companies, I think Intel's working on some things too. There's a company called Tobii that does eye gaze systems, and for some kids it would be indispensable to have that built in. Right now it's fairly expensive. And also there's also a lot of adults who have ALS, and some of the systems are very expensive. But there is actually a Microsoft Surface Pro solution with the Tobii with eye gaze. But even there's some research being done with basically it's kind of interesting, but the brain, when people who have locked-in syndromes, who may have severe strokes, and what happens is if they're thinking of something, the brain actually fires as if it's going to happen, but because they don't, because they don't have no motor capabilities, nothing happens. So they're actually looking at sort of interfaces where people can think and words will appear on the screen using word prediction and things like that. So I think that's definitely coming. As well. So I think we'll see some big strides in, those kinds of technologies that give individuals with more limited motor abilities the ability to communicate and, control their environment, which is really, really exciting.
Good. Well, that's exciting to hear from you. One of my favorite things about doing Home Gadget Geeks, we're on show 196, so I've been doing this a while. We just celebrated our 4-year anniversary last podcast, and we didn't even realize it until we were on the show talking about it. I'm like, oh, hey, guys, this is our 4-year anniversary. Is that I get to have some great conversations that aren't just so tech-centric, but today we really talked about how this helps people, right? I mean, this is real technology in a real place, helping real people do stuff, and it's exciting to have you kind of in the middle of that. Because oftentimes we talk tech gear just
right.
for like just for the sake of tech gear. It's like, yeah, I've got 8 watches and four tablets.
Right.
And so I love to have folks on that come and kind of bring it home to, like, here's how we're actually using it today, and this is how it's overcoming obstacles and people are getting done. So Brian, thanks for taking a few minutes to be on. It's great to catch up with you.
Likewise, Jim. Have a great holiday, and be glad to in the future come back on and share some other things that I'm doing. I mean, this stuff changes so quickly. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, maybe we can have you on. Hang tight. We'll do a little bit of a post show. I've got a few announcements to go through before we kick out of here, but I will remind folks on our way out that December is Leave a Review Month for your favorite podcast. And so if this happens to be your favorite podcast, which it should be, go out to iTunes or to your favorite podcatcher. Give us a little rating. It's always kind of nice. I don't ask for that very often, but I decided I would make December that month. Maybe during the holiday break when you're with family, you need to get away from them for a few minutes. You just sneak away and then rate the podcast out there. Do it in whatever Stitcher or iTunes or whatever Beyond Pod or Dogcatcher, whatever you use to listen to the podcast. Get out there. Maybe it's Spreaker or Mixler, one of those two. You can do that out there as well. And we'd love to have you get the podcast rated. Don't forget the Average Guy Tech Scholarship Fund that we do. Of course, you probably get tired of me saying that, but if you're new to the show, we will, if you want to test something out, say you have a new technology you want to try, and around $100 or so, it can be a little more if it needs to be. I'll buy that for you. We'll ship it to you. You use it, rate it, review it, come on the podcast or write a review, one of the two, and then we'll let you keep it. So that is the Average Guy Tech Scholarship Fund. That is supported when you purchase things from our affiliate link. So theaverageguy.tv/Amazon, or now if you want to help out John Zadler, he's going to be my Canadian correspondent. In Canada, and you can't mix Canadian American money. Something happens when you do that. I'm not quite sure, but in Canada, it's theaverageguy.tv/CA. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. I'll have a special New Year's edition coming out here at the end of the month, and so if you haven't signed up for that, go out to theaverageguy.tv. It'll say cool newsletter or something like that over on the right-hand side. Put your email address in there. I promise I will not spam you. Just my way of communicating with you once a month. Many of you are not, what I'm finding out is many of you are not on social media. And you're not even here. I mean, I just got a note from somebody today. It's like, hey, I don't follow you on Twitter. And so I was like, well, okay, the newsletter is the best way to stay up with what's going on. If you have ideas, things you want to hear about, those kinds of things, let me know as well. Love to converse with you. You can get my email address and write me back. It's great. We do Ask the Podcast Coach every Saturday morning if you want to join me out there. But that's a lot of fun, 9:30 a.m. Central, 10:30 Eastern, out at AskThePodcastCoach.com. That's just a fun one to come out if you're thinking about podcasting, or you just want to come out and hear more of me. Well, I don't know why you would, but if you want to, you can head out there and hear us on Saturday mornings. And if you haven't made the jump over to Cyber Frontiers, Brian and I were talking about these two smart kids that just run circles.
God.
Around.
God.
They are pretty amazing, right?
They are.
Christian turns 20 in 2 days. He
Wow.
turns 20 in 2 days.
Wow.
He's 19 years old, and I think Ashton might be 20 at this point. But two University of Maryland College Park students that come on and just run circles around most of us. But they really try to bring it to you in a way. We had them on. They were on last week's Home Gadget Geek. So if you haven't heard that, go back to it. And they talked a little bit about the gadgets and the stuff they use in college. But if you would want to join us for Cyber Frontiers, that's every other Monday. So maybe it's not such a commitment. You can catch us on Monday nights and head out there. And then a reminder to if you're into watches or if you're into home automation, and more and more of you are doing that. We've started forums on the Geeks Network to do that. Smartware forums, all one word, smartwareforums.com. Or home automation forums, and I think haforums.com work for that as well. So smartware forums and homeautomationforums.com will get you there. If that's a place you want to go out and talk about your gadgets and such and create forums. We have a great forums community for home server stuff over at homeservershow.com, and there's a great forums community. Likewise, one for Surface Geeks. So that's 4 different forums that maybe you fit one of those. And, of course, those will all be in the show notes if you want to take a peek and join in on any of those forums. I think for smartware forums and home automation forums, we're actually looking for mods and some folks who will help us kind of get those forums started. So Dave's running the show over there, and if you'd like to get involved in those, we would love to get you involved. I talked a little bit 2 weeks ago. We talked about a Kickstarter program, and they've already shut it down. So if you jumped in on the Kickstarter project for On Air, in the on-air box. They let it run for about 10 or 11 days. The funding was not moving like they were hoping for. They found a new supplier. They're going to go back to the drawing board, and they canceled that Kickstarter. So if you got involved in that, you get your money back, however you pledge, and then they have a new Kickstarter program coming out with it. We want to thank Daniel for coming on the show a couple weeks ago, and we will follow that. It was a really cool idea for some music automation in your home, a way to get all the music without having to move music around. You could have it play from anywhere, from any device, and just about any device. And so that has been canceled. So I just thought I would tell you that as well. We are out here every Thursday night, just about. Christmas is next week, by the way. Merry Christmas to you. Happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, all those things during this holiday season that are appropriate from the Average Guy Network for all the hosts that are on here and all the guests. Brian will represent the guests that we've had on here. We will say happy holidays too. It is our privilege to come out, and we say thanks for listening to us. It's great that 1,000 or 2,000 of you every week come out and hear the podcast, and we appreciate that. Interact with us if you'd like. Brian, if folks had questions for you, what would be the best way? How do you like to converse around these kinds of things? What's the best way?
They can reach me on Twitter at Assistive Tech. Or if they want, I'd be glad, and if you want to put my email in the show notes, I'd be glad to do that as well. The other thing I wanted to mention too is I had the opportunity to work with Office Mix this semester with my graduate students, and that has really been another fantastic tool in Microsoft's arsenal for doing, whether it be flipped learning, flipped classroom, or just providing students with modules, and it worked really well. And I think for those of you that are not familiar, Office Mix is a plugin to PowerPoint. You can download for free. It works with Office 2013 and Office 365, and it adds a variety of tools, everything from screencasting to adding quizzes to adding videos from Khan Academy, from YouTube. And then it also does tremendous work around analytics. So if you put a quiz or questions, you can actually get back the results and see how your students are doing. But they made the publishing just so easy. That last mile is so easy that I think more faculty and teachers will begin to use it to push out call e-learning modules, shall we say. And since most people are pretty comfortable with PowerPoint, it makes a lot of sense. But again, having Surface Pro 3 with the digital ink experience even adds more value to it, so you can, basically use PowerPoint as a kind of a whiteboard if you want, or you can use it to highlight text or circle or check things off as you're going through your slides. So it's really been indispensable, because I teach some hybrid courses, and I was able to quickly create these modules and push them out through using Office Mix, which is really exciting.
Well, I'll have to give that a try. You know, we are during the holiday season here. I'm using Gallup kind of, I don't want to say we shut down, but it gets really slow the last 2 weeks of the year. So my plan is to use it. I've been talking about a learning studio, a very interactive, that's more of a podcast center, but has learning components to it. So instead of a learning, you know, I'm coming at it from producing education as opposed to, you know, creating and helping create a virtual classroom. Let's just say it that way. And so I've been kind of gathering some tools to do this. We started this project a year ago. We got a quarter of the way through it, a quarter of the way through the year, and then some other priorities kicked in, and we just never got back to it. And some of the technology we weren't ready yet. And so as I look at this Office Mix, this may be one I throw. We're going to do some testing in the next couple weeks, and we're going to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. So this might be one.
I think a couple things with Office Mix is you also, because you know the Surface Pro is a great platform for it, because it also allows you to actually, you know, record video as well. So you could, you know, you get the talking head on the slide, and I usually do that to introduce it, but then I just go to straight audio, but it lets you do that. It also lets you export your entire package as just pure video as well, so they will work on, you know, iPad devices that don't support other, I guess, flash technology. But when it's delivered through a, you know, laptop or a desktop, you can make it very interactive, and again with the quizzes and the videos and things like that. It's a great, you know, learning platform. And sometimes what I do is, I mean, if I'm teaching my students how to use a particular piece of software, I'll create a screencast and put it up on YouTube, and then bring it back into Mix, and you know, go through the steps of how to use it, and then I'll have some follow-up questions or reflection, and then all that information gets passed to me when the students submit it, you know, after they view it. But the analytics are just unbelievable. You can see how many seconds the students stayed on slides and how they responded. So it's quite powerful, and if you want, you could export that to Excel as well.
Very cool. Well, actually, I'll cut that part out. I mean, I'm going to leave it in, but I'll cut that part out, make it a home tech tip. We'll call it a home tech tip for Office Mix.
Yeah, it's great.
A little short version of it. And so if you're watching this on Home Tech Tips, if you got to the end of this, you can find this and other great stuff, tools that are available for you over at theaverageguy.tv. All right, we'll end it there, and that'll make a nice little home tech tip for you. See, we multitask here on the network, and try and get things done. So we'll end the live show with this. We'll say thanks for coming out. You can join us every Thursday night, 8 p.m. except Christmas, and then I got sidetracked by Christmas. Except Christmas, although I think we'll be on Thursday night of New Year's. So I think I'm going to do it anyway. I don't have a show lined up, but I think we're going to be on. We'll get one figured out. So January 1st, we're back on, but every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out at theaverageguy.tv/live. Of course, we'd love to have you join us and chat, and we want to thank everybody that's out there live tonight. You could join us live, too, if you just come out on Thursday nights, and we'd love to have you. It's not as intimidating or as hard as you think. Just come out and join us for the live show. For Brian and myself, we'll say good night, everybody.
Good night. Have a good holiday season.